Hello and welcome. First of all, thank you for taking the time. I would like to address my previous video that I did on a nuclear attack and the possibilities that seem to be increasing day by day. There were a lot of comments, a lot of mixed reaction. So I would like to address some of the comments, some of people who I would like to thank, and I would like to address those comments. First being that I was accused you got this news or your source is TikTok. Um, isn't this ironic? Like how we are now forced to get our news from social media because the mainstream media will never tell you the truth. And that's why we have to revert towards now what are more reliable sources for getting the news, which is social media. But on that too, there's a censorship going on where the social media is now being forced to take off the news links. You must have heard about the steps that Canada took, where they are forcing those companies to pay, but the real motive is that, of course, they will decline, and that will give us the motive and the reason to take off those news links. So this is happening right there in front of you, happening right at your face, that people are now relying on reviews and news provided by independent journalists or people like you and I who are basically concerned and people who want to voice their concerns and reach out other people such as yourself who are watching and convey the message. I do hope and pray that the nuclear option never happens. Trust me, it sends chills down my spine whenever I think about it. And some of the people were right. Like in these days, with the advent of technology and how lethal those weapons have become, the warning time is trivial. But it's still a possibility. Look at your politicians, look at the people. Like, what are they thinking? Does their attitude by any means, any chance prove that they are looking for peace? At least I don't think, or I don't see that. Um, the draft, one of the viewers commented that I don't see any draft happening. So if there's no draft happening, there's no world war. Do you think in these changed times the draft holds any sort of significance? In the past two examples, the draft only happened when the front line started growing thin. They started running out of able hands. And that's when the women were drafted into the weaponry industry, where they would go into the manufacturing and much more labor intense industry because all the men were at the front and they were drafted in because the front started growing thin. So they had to get every able bodied person, just like how it's happening in Ukraine. Every able bodied person, every person who is 14 or above is being drafted into the army. So it's not likely to happen in Europe, like at least in the big superpowers like the US, UK, France, because it'll never come down to that. Another reason, the resources and timeline are very limited. So like the conventional war, like how it's going to between how it's happening between Russia and Ukraine, where Ukraine keeps running out of munition and they have to be supplied more, where Russia is firing almost up to 65,000 artillery rounds a day. So there's no comparison to the conventional war. With US and EU are well short on the labor which is required in the steel factories, in the weapons manufacturing factories. The recent example is Poland, where they are trying their best to keep up with the munitions supply, but there's just not enough labor. And they have been trying to ramp up productions, but it's not. But in China and Russia, it's different. They have been ramping up production like for the past year or so, even beyond that. So I don't think they would run out that soon as compared to the US and UK. Then comes air superiority, which is no longer an option. Of course, when I talk about air superiority, Europe and US clearly have an edge. Their aircrafts are far more superior, maybe higher in number, and they can annihilate like China and Russia's Air Force combined, it's going to be a bloodbath, but eventually they will be gaining air superiority. That's my review, or that's my opinion, that US and European Union will gain air superiority, but after a bloodbath. But once that is gained, it will serve no other purpose but to instigate a nuclear attack. The missile warfare. You think China and Russia will just sit back? Oh, we've lost our air force, we have lost air superiority. Of course, now our ground force is in danger and they're being annihilated by the air force. So do you think they will sit back and just watch their armies being annihilated? No, they'll instantly switch over to the other means. And you and I know very well why this recent Alaskan incident took place, because they are measuring, they are watching, they're seeing where it'll take them and how much warning times, how much prep time our enemies have. So I will continue this further down the road, but please keep in mind that this is in no way intended to induce fear, instigate fear, or panic or anything. This is just my opinion. Things how I see it coming. Things how other people such as yourself see it coming. So I don't mean to scare you, but I'm scared. And I'm just thinking out loud. So forgive me if by any means, any chance, I'm doing this to you. Now, another thing, just like a nuclear war, a cyber attack is imminent as well, and it can create even more chaos without doing any damage. I will cover that in my next video. What are the possibilities if a cyber attack happens, pockets of which are already happening, but our media once again is not reporting it. And you may have experienced temporary internet outages and you must have gone like, oh, this is normal. But is it? Until next time, take care of yourself. God bless. Bye for now.